Before kings ruled Egypt, before pyramids pierced the sky, before history was written in stone, there was power. But not the kind you could see. It did not sit on a throne. It did not wear a crown. It did not lead armies into battle. Yet, it controlled everything. This is the story of ancient Egyptian priests, the men who ruled an entire civilization without ever calling themselves kings. For thousands of years, Egypt stood as the most stable civilization in human history. Dynasties rose and fell, but Egypt remained Egypt. The Nile kept flowing, the gods stayed silent, and the people obeyed. But have you ever asked yourself, how did this civilization stay so controlled for so long? Why did rebellions almost never succeed? Why did even pharaohs fear something more than death? The answer lies in a system so powerful, so subtle, and so intelligent that most people still don't notice it today. Welcome to the hidden power system of ancient Egyptian priests, the illusion of the pharaoh. When we imagine ancient Egypt, we picture a pharaoh standing tall, a living god, ruler of land and people. But that image is misleading, because behind every pharaoh stood a group of men who decided when he ruled, how he ruled, and whether the gods still supported him. Those men were the priests. Here's something most people never realize. Pharaohs were temporary. Priests were permanent. A pharaoh might rule for 10 years, 20 years, maybe 40 if lucky. But the priesthood lasted thousands of years unchanged. When one king died, the priests stayed. When a dynasty collapsed, the priests stayed. When wars destroyed cities, the temples remained standing. They were the one constant in Egypt's long history. And that alone should make you suspicious. Knowledge, the first weapon. In ancient Egypt, knowledge was rare, very rare. More than 99% of the population could not read or write. No books, no laws written for the people, no explanations, only symbols carved on temple walls. And only one group could read those symbols, the priests. They controlled writing, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, history, religious texts. To ordinary Egyptians, priests weren't educated men. They were messengers of the gods. Imagine being a farmer. You work the land every day. You don't understand the stars. You don't understand floods. You don't understand disease. Then a priest arrives and says, "The gods say the Nile will rise in 7 days." And 7 days later, it does. To you, this is not science. This is divine power. But the priests were simply using generations of recorded data, star positions, seasons, river cycles. Knowledge turned into prophecy. Prophecy turned into authority. And authority turned into control. The Nile River was Egypt's heartbeat. If it flooded at the right time, Egypt prospered. If it flooded too late, people starved. If it didn't flood at all, chaos followed. The priests understood the Nile. They tracked Sirius, the star whose appearance predicted the flood. They calculated lunar cycles. They kept records going back hundreds of years. So when priests announced the flood, people listened. And when the flood came exactly as predicted, faith became absolute. The priests didn't need soldiers. The river itself proved them right. Temples, not religion, government. Today, we think temples were places of prayer. In Egypt, temples were governments in disguise. Inside a temple, you'd find banks, grain storage, schools, courts, hospitals, libraries, workshops, administrative offices. Temples owned land. Temples owned workers. Temples owned ships. Temples owned farms. And priests controlled them all. The Temple of Amun alone owned nearly 1/3 of Egypt's land at its peak. That means if you worked for the temple. If you ate, your food passed through the temple. If you learned, the temple decided what you learned. If you prayed, the temple decided what the gods said. This was not religion. This was total control of daily life. Control through fear of death. Egyptians didn't fear death. They feared what came after. The afterlife was complex, dangerous, and full of judgment. Your heart would be weighed. Your soul could be destroyed. Your eternity could vanish forever. And only one group claimed to know the rules: the priests. They wrote the spells. They performed the rituals. They interpreted the signs. They prepared the dead. Without priests, there was no safe passage to eternity. This meant something powerful. Even the richest man, even the strongest warrior, even the Pharaoh himself was spiritually helpless without the priesthood. Fear made obedience automatic. Miracles that weren't miracles. Priests performed wonders. Statues spoke. Doors opened themselves. Fire appeared from nowhere. Voices echoed from nowhere. To the people, these were miracles. To the priests, they were technology. Hidden chambers, sound tunnels, hydraulics, optical illusions, early chemistry. The gods didn't speak, the priests did. But they never revealed the trick, because mystery is power. The Pharaoh as a controlled god. Pharaohs were raised by priests, educated by priests, crowned by priests. Every ritual that confirmed the Pharaoh's divinity was performed by priests, which meant if priests withdrew their support, the Pharaoh lost his divine right. A king without divine approval was nothing, and everyone knew it. This made priests untouchable. The priests of Amun, the hidden kings. Over time, one priesthood became too powerful. The priests of Amun. They controlled gold. They controlled land. They controlled armies. They controlled belief. At one point, the high priest of Amun was more powerful than the Pharaoh. Egypt had two rulers, one visible, one invisible, and the invisible one always won. The king who fought back. One man tried to break the system, Akhenaten. He shut down temples, he erased gods, he cut priestly wealth, and for a moment, the priests lost. But when Akhenaten died, they erased him from history, destroyed his statues, removed his name, restored their power. The lesson was clear. You can rule Egypt, but you cannot rule the priests. The first psychological empire. The priests didn't rule with violence. They ruled with knowledge, with fear, with belief, with ritual, with mystery, with control of meaning. They understood something ancient civilizations rarely did. The mind is the strongest battlefield. Control the mind, and the body follows. Final thought. Ancient Egypt was not ruled by kings alone. It was ruled by men who understood psychology long before the word existed. They didn't need armies. They didn't need crowns. They ruled through belief. And that may be the most powerful system ever created.